ma'am, I may safely promise you never to dance with Mr. Darcy.
My good opinion, once lost, is lost forever.
Mr. Darcy?
Miss Bennet.
It's about young people with raging hormones.
It has social significance that is revolutionary, actually.
I think that Pride and Prejudice will still be read when people go on holiday to the moon.
It's one of the most popular, influential and cherished novels in literary history. 2 centuries after publication, the story of the Bennet girls' progress through the marriage market remains fresh, enchanting and vital, and the book's numerous adaptations testify to its enduring appeal. Jane Austen began writing Pride and Prejudice when she was 20. When it was published anonymously, she was 37. In the intervening years, she crafted a masterpiece which lit up the literary world.
Pride and Prejudice was a hit when it came out at the beginning of 1813. Richard Brinsley Sheridan, the playwright, the wittiest man of his time, said it was the cleverest thing he'd read. Jane Austen's brother Henry told her that somebody had told him very assuredly that it was far too clever to have been written by a woman. You get the sense that London buzzed with it. And it's, of course, gone on being absolutely steadily popular ever since.
Pride and Prejudice beguiles its readers right from the opening lines.
It is a truth universally acknowledged
that a single man in possession of a good fortune
Must
Be in want of a wife.
I remember reading Pride and Prejudice, I think must have been about 12, 13. I absolutely couldn't put it down. I just thought it was a brilliant, brilliant book.
I fell in love completely with Elizabeth and Darcy.
I just adored it. It had a huge effect on me. It understood about all this stuff that was just starting to churn away.
I first read Pride and Prejudice in 1975 at North Staffordshire Polytechnic. To be honest, it was like reading a book about aliens. I got to about page 13, then left it. I'd rather read Jack Kerouac and William Burroughs, who were part of the same course. And then in my mid-40s, I picked it up again as a fellow who got teenage kids and who'd had a kind of life. And I realised that, in fact, it was Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg who were the aliens. And it was people like Darcy and Elizabeth who were really my neighbours.
To film and TV screenwriters, the novel has always been ripe for adaptation. In 1940, Hollywood turned it into a high-gloss evocation of England past, with Laurence Olivier's Darcy in pursuit of Greer Garson's Elizabeth.
It's no use. I've struggled in vain. I must tell you how much I admire and love you.
The BBC has adapted it 6 times.
If I could feel gratitude for what you have just said, sir, I would now thank you, but I cannot. I have never desired your good opinion, and you have certainly bestowed it most unwillingly.
Each generation has cast a new pair of courting combatants.
And this is the reply which I'm to the honour of expecting. I might perhaps wish to be informed why, with so little endeavour at civility, I am thus rejected.
But it was the 1995 version that really ignited the public imagination.
I had not known you a month before I felt you were the last man in the world whom I could ever marry.
You have said quite enough, madam.
It was translated to the screen by the acknowledged master of period drama adaptations, Andrew Davies.
It's always been a favourite book of mine, and I thought it had never been done well before. I think people just make terrible mistakes about Jane Austen. They think that her novels are social comedies and about very small and tiny things. But they're about immense things. They're about love and sex and money and betrayal.
Over the course of 6 episodes, more than 11 million viewers watched Colin Firth and Jennifer Ely move from sparring to seduction, and the series transformed public attitudes to Austen's work.
The 1995 adaptation of Pride and Prejudice was a catalyst for kick-starting all sorts of things. It became part of our broader culture in a way that the book wasn't.
One of those things was Bridget Jones's diary. Its plot was based on the book. Its hero was one Mark Darcy, and Bridget even devoted a couple of days' entries to her obsession with the series.
By the way, the Darcys are here. They brought Mark with them.
Ah, here we go. In the film version, some new dialogue and the casting of Colin Firth made the parallels even more explicit.
I do not need a blind date, particularly not with some verbally incontinent spinster who smokes like a chimney, drinks like a fish, and dresses like her mother.
Yummy.
Bingley, I'm in no humour to give consequence to young ladies who are slighted by other men.
Since then, the story's been shifted in space as well as time. In 2004, the director Gurinder Chadha turned this classic English novel into a Bollywood-style spectacular.
All mothers think that any single guy with big bucks must be shopping for a wife.
In Bride and Prejudice, I wanted to take Jane Austen's preoccupation with class a step further by transposing the class differences between Darcy and Lizzie into more of a first world, third world situation.
And the adaptations keep on coming. In 2005, a new film version, written by the novelist Deborah Moggach, streamlined the story for the cinema.
There's a strong single narrative, and I emphasise that it's Lizzie's story, it's Elizabeth Bennet's story. And, for instance, in the film, she doesn't confide in anybody. There were several scenes shot in the film that were actually edited out to keep it into Lizzie's face and her heart.
It can sustain such a lot of rereadings. You read it differently at different ages. You read it differently at different, decades of history and so on. And in 10 years' time, it would probably be time for somebody to say, oh, God, they look so old-fashioned, those versions. It's time to take a fresh look at it.
It's easy to see why filmmakers find the book so irresistible. Pride and Prejudice contains every ingredient necessary for screen success. At its heart is a battle of the sexes fought with wit and passion by two complex, intriguing and beautifully matched characters. In the 1995 adaptation, Jennifer Ealy's BAFTA award-winning performance captured Elizabeth Bennet's spirit, intellect and playfulness.
She had that little twinkle in her eye. She kind of had these gorgeous cheeks that were, it was very hard for her not to smile as she said things. And then when she got upset, you felt genuinely upset.
Poor Lydia. Poor, stupid girl.
You'd so invested in this wonderful woman. So for me, emotionally, she carried me through the whole series.
The richness of Elizabeth's character is one of the delights of the book. Austen's creation crackles with subtlety, sensitivity and wit.
Elizabeth's almost the most appealing heroine in lit.
She is bright, self-possessed, confident, political, witty. She's what every hero or heroine should be.
She's cheeky. I think that's what makes her appeal so much to a modern audience. She really stands up for herself, and she won't be cowed by authority.
I am almost the nearest relation he has, and I am entitled to know all his nearest concerns.
But you are not entitled to know mine, nor will such behaviour as this induce me to be explicit.
The thing about her is that she is not just beautiful. Her intelligence is part of her beauty, but she gets things wrong. That makes her interesting, too.
Are you much acquainted with Mr. Darcy?
As much as I ever wish to be. I've spent 3 days in the same house with him, and I find him very disagreeable.
I fear there are few who would share that opinion, except myself.
At first sight, Darcy seems more anti-hero than hero. Brooding and diffident, his appeal is complex.
I think Mr. Darcy's the sort of person, if you met him in real life, you'd probably kick his teeth in. Well, I mean, that terrible line about it sounds like the electricity board.
You expect me to rejoice in the inferiority of your connections, to congratulate myself on the hope of relations whose conditions in life are so decidedly beneath my own?